Sonic shows Darkseid his real power, and it's amazing. Okay, so we didn't cover 4. We're going to cover 4 and 5 in this video. Number 4 is pretty simple. This one actually just kind of picks up where number 2 left off, which is to say, issue number 2 was where Team Sonic was basically teleported to Earth by Cyborg in the hopes that they could find some way to bring reinforcements back to Sonic's world in order to help the Justice League defeat Darkseid. Along the way, Team Sonic ended up discovering that some of the Chaos Emeralds were teleported from Sonic's world over to the main DC universe, which was pretty dope. And they also basically became analogs for the Justice League, right? Like Knuckles becomes Superman and Sonic becomes the Flash, only in appearance, right? They don't actually gain their individual powers. But while all that was going on, because of what had been happening with the fight against Darkseid, space and time had been distorted. And so it gave the illusion that Sonic's world and his entire universe had basically been eradicated, right? Which was not actually the case. Because what this does is this picks up with the Justice League facing off against Darkseid. Now, the reality here is, again, because Team Sonic doesn't necessarily know how powerful Darkseid really is, they don't know that, like, Darkseid is, that he's a kind of force of nature, right, living entropy, that because the Justice League does, they know their best bet is to find some way to escape this place as fast as humanly possible. And so what happens is that while Darkseid has the blue Chaos Emerald, right, this wildly powerful artifact that's allowing him to effectively take over this entire universe, that the red Chaos Emerald is still floating out there. And so in that moment, the Flash grabs it, hands it over to Cyborg. Cyborg just like plunges it into his arm and then effectively creates a boom tube using a Chaos Emerald, right? A means of teleportation, which gets the Justice League out of there. And so no longer trapped within the dimension of Ragnarok within the Sonic universe, now they're simply just back on Sonic's Earth. But at this point, Darkseid's still a threat, right? Ragnarok is in that universe from Sonic, and so Darkseid can still control and destroy the entirety of Sonic's reality. And so the first thing they do is they say, okay, we need a plan. The issue here is that they need Chaos Emeralds in order to do it. Again, some Chaos Emeralds are still here, and some Chaos Emeralds are back on Earth. So they have to grab what they can. And so this basically leads to really a cameo appearance of a character named Blaze the Cat. Now, I don't really know much about Blaze the Cat. Blaze the Cat looks cool. From what I understand, Blaze the Cat's pretty solid. Again, I'm not the most knowledgeable when it comes to Sonic. I don't really know anything, but I know this crossover is dope, and that's really all that matters. So the cool thing about this is that Blaze is actually facing off against the Furies, which is kind of dope to see. Now, for those of you guys who are Sonic fans and you don't necessarily know anything about the Furies are dope, man. They're really, really cool. They're basically like the female soldiers of Darkseid. There are male Furies. One of the misconceptions is that it's only women. There are male Furies, but by and large, the female Furies are the more deadly and dangerous of all the Furies that exist out there. Big Barda traditionally leads them, but it is awesome to see here because what you end up getting is Wonder Woman showing up here and helping Blaze the Cat fend off against the female Furies. And for those of you guys who aren't familiar with DC and you're going to ask the question, yes, there have been instances where Darkseid tried to turn Wonder Woman into a female Fury. And I want to say that it's happened, but that's more headcanon. I don't remember off the top of my head. But the fact is, right, this leads to Wonder Woman being gifted a Chaos Emerald by Blaze, right? Now, Blaze literally tells her, look, if this was any other circumstance, no, I would never give this to you. Like, not in a million years, because I don't know you, right? But the reality here is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and you defeated people who were trying to take it from me, which means that you presenting yourself as a friend, I'm trusting that you're a good guy here. It's some story level stuff, right? Just contextual things. But at that point, you switch over to Batman. And the cool thing about this is Batman is chasing after Mecha Sonic, which is dope. We don't really get to see Mecha Sonic that much. He's only here for like a momentary thing. And in fact, Batman defeats him within one page, right? So of course, he ends up just taking the Chaos Emerald and walking away. And it kind of goes on and on and on. That the Flash goes after Baron Vermin, who is one of Darkseid's generals. He basically takes on the Deadly Six. And then Superman confronts Dr. Eggman. Right now, here's a funny thing about this. Superman is ridiculously overpowered within the Sonic universe, right? Not because any power was added to what he already had. It's just Superman's power in relation to everyone here, right? I mean, it's just ridiculously OP. So when he shows up here, you get this amazing moment, right? Where Dr. Eggman is like, what in the world? He's like, what is that? Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman. Because Superman is just plowing through all of his his forces and just shows up here, right? Now, Eggman has like his whole robot and everything that he's using to try to face off against Superman, and like Superman just stops it with the greatest of ease. It doesn't present any challenge whatsoever, unlike me when I was 11 years old and getting dominated by this thing in Sonic 2. At the end of the day, Superman just crushes this. It's no challenge whatsoever in any meaningful way. But at the end of the day, Superman is Superman. And one of the greatest things about his character is not just the fact that he has incredible levels of power, it's his ability to like neutralize situations. So he starts addressing Dr. Eggman, right? Where Eggman's just like, have a little decency and engage in some pre-battle banter. Because as you guys know, Superman doesn't really banter all that much. And Superman just says, your world is in peril. While I'll never understand the ambitions of people like you, surely self-preservation should be part of your calculus. Now, of course, Dr. Eggman calls him a tourist because Dr. Eggman doesn't know who he's messing with, but the response to Superman is just the Chaos Emerald, right? Where is it? And ultimately, Eggman just kind of gives him what he wants, right? He's just like down in the reactor room, 10 floors down, before the engines, you cannot miss it. And Superman's just like, thanks. Now, here's one thing to understand here. While Dr. Eggman is a megalomaniac narcissist, he's not an idiot, right? And so he knows that if it comes down to it, Superman will tear the entire facility apart in order to find that Chaos Emerald. So either you can tell him where it is and he can just go down there and he can pick it up and he can leave and probably destroy your building as he flies out, but only really making a small hole, or he can obliterate everything you've worked your life to build in order to find that thing. So that's why Eggman tells him it's down there. And probably also because Eggman has a little bit of self-preservation built in. But again, it goes on and on and on. And then at that point, you switch over to John Stewart. Now, I had to look this up. Apparently in Sonic, you have something called the Will of Wisps, which kind of manifests. It's like these little ghost-type figures that just wreak havoc, right? They're like little gremlins, from what I gather, in the Sonic universe. But I'll be honest, man, nothing prepared me for John Stewart channeling the power of wisps in order to use their abilities and essentially channel the White Lantern power, right? I was never prepared for that. It's dope. It's amazing. I absolutely love it, but it just kind of gives him the momentary energy he needs in order to seemingly defeat Granny Goodness, at least for the interim. And then at that point, the Wisps just present to him their Chaos Emerald, right? Because again, much like everybody else, they see John Stewart as an ally, helping them to defeat Darkseid. And so with these Chaos Emeralds intact, that's when you kind of get to the plan, where Cyborg says, now that we have a solid read on how the emeralds react to each other, I think I have a way to deal with our situation. The Ragnarok's dimensional engine has distorted the surrounding space-time and subspace too much for us to boom tube out. But we can use the emerald's power to punch through to our dimension and then basically create a way to bring Team Sonic back. Now, of course, at that moment, the Flash is just kind of like, Batman, give me basic terms. And Batman's like, we're locked in this dimension. We're going to slide the key under the door and Team Sonic's going to use it to unlock the door. They're going to join us. We're going to defeat Darkseid and be home in time for cornflakes. And Flash is like, cool, bro. Thank you, Batman. And so at that point, they basically start getting to work. Now, here's the cool thing. Once these emeralds are used to create a dimensional barrier, basically a boom tube, a portal, that's when you got to the end of the last issue where Sonic and crew jumped back into their reality to rejoin the Justice League in the fight against Darkseid. And that's where things get dope. Because at that point, everybody's kind of like, okay, what do we do, right? There is a little bit of catching up and Team Sonic is like, you guys won't believe how much fun we had. We were in your universe and like we beat Sinestro and Joker's crazy as hell and we got Chaos Emeralds and now we have new outfits. The drip is on point, but they're like, now we got to focus on the here and now, right? We got to deal with this and we got to deal with Darkseid. And so what they do is they come up with this plan, right? Given the immense power of the Chaos Emeralds, the hope here is that by channeling the power of the Chaos Emeralds together, they can use it in order to defeat and remove Darkseid. Now, one of the things that I do want to clarify here in this story in relation to Darkseid is that we don't know if this is like the main DC Universe Darkseid. It doesn't seem to be the case because of what's going on with Absolute Universe and whatnot, but Darkseid is immensely powerful and he can never truly be killed. He can only ever really be staved off for some period of time. And that's exactly what they're going to learn here, because in that moment, once they show up, Darkseid's got the last Chaos Emerald they need in order to seize control of all of creation. And in witnessing everything unfolding with regards to the Justice League and Team Sonic reuniting, he sees it as a win, because while their goal is to take the final Chaos Emerald from Darkseid, he sees it as them bringing the Chaos Emeralds to him. And Darkseid, in his arrogance and hubris, believes that he will absolutely win here, and there's no way he can lose. And so he literally starts channeling the entire environment against Team Sonic and the Justice League. And physics don't work the same way here, right? Like, reality itself is being bent and distorted. And so when Batman shows up here with Shadow, he's just like, look, man, we need to do what we can, right? Use every distraction you possibly can. Tear gas, flashbangs, and of course it's not enough to destroy Darkseid, but that's not the point, right? I mean, the day the Darkseid gets defeated by tear gas, well, you know. But the point that Batman's making here is we can distract him long enough to buy us precious few seconds. And when you're dealing with individuals who move as fast as Sonic and Flash, seconds can make all the difference in the world. And so that's exactly what they get. Because with Darkseid channeling the power of the blue Chaos Emerald, while simultaneously Cyborg and Tails are trying to pull the blue Chaos Emerald out, Sonic finally gets his hands on it. Here's the problem, right? Tails and Cyborg are all the way over there, and Sonic and Flash are all the way over here. And the reality is that Tails and Cyborg could come to them, but at the end of the day, they can't move nearly as fast as Sonic and the Flash. And so if Tails and Cyborg were to try to take off, Darkseid would probably incinerate them with the Omega Beams. And while everybody else is trying to keep Darkseid distracted, all it's going to take is Darkseid having a single moment where he happens to glimpse to the left and see Sonic and Flash, and then at that moment, he'll put two and two together and he'll take out Tails. And so in that moment, Sonic and Flash have the most comic book logic ever, and I am here for it, bro. Because the fact that they're just kind of stranded on these rocks over there, but they're also inverted to each other, basically up is down for both of them, that what they do is they run off of each other's feet because they have nothing to run on, right? So like they start running off of each other's feet, and literally it allows Sonic and Flash to build up enough speed for Sonic to get over to where the other Chaos Emeralds are at. And son, y'all know what happens when Sonic unites the Chaos Emeralds. Y'all know what's about to happen, son. Sonic grabs that Chaos Emerald, just plunges it down into the other Chaos Emeralds, and boom, just like that, supersonic, son. And I gotta tell you guys, man, this is the most dope thing that I have ever seen. Like, it is so amazing. Supersonic facing off against Darkseid. Dude, it is a nerd's wet dream. I absolutely love it, because he literally says, I'll admit, that stung a little bit backside, but tell me if you feel this. And just blasts him with the full totality of his power. Kicks this dude in the gut. And at that point, Darkseid just like grabs Supersonic and then headbutts him. What does Sonic do, man? He looks at him, he says, man, son, you better come strong, son. And so at that point, you switch back over to Cyborg and to Tails. Because with Sonic channeling the power of the Chaos Emeralds and is the only thing that stands between all the superheroes and complete annihilation at the hands of Darkseid, they need an energy source that can be used for their inverter, because that's the device that's channeling the Chaos Emeralds in order to help them defeat Darkseid and save the day. And that's where the Flash is like, I have an idea, right? I can use the Speed Force, but I need something to run on, right? Something stationary that I can start building up speed on. And Tails is like, I got you, bro. So Tails slides under Flash, and Flash starts treating his tails like a cosmic treadmill. And then Cyborg shields him from whatever else is going on out there, all the crazy energies that's going on. And so he starts building up all this crazy energy in this impeller. And as we know, because Flash is absolutely, definitely, unequivocally, no one would debate, faster than Sonic, that using the Speed Force starts to build up the same level of power as the Chaos Emeralds. And when that happens, with Supersonic operating as a distraction and everybody else facing off against Darkseid, Darkseid loses it. And that's when he starts to reveal his true power, right? The Omega Sanction. Because with this ability, it's almost like Galactus and the Power Cosmic. It's whatever the story needs it to be. And because Darkseid is the living embodiment of entropy, much like what he did with his death in Final Crisis, he can sink a reality, right? He's literally a universal sinkhole. And so because of that, he starts sucking the universe into himself, destroying and eradicating reality in its entirety. And there really isn't much that anyone can do to stop him, given the extreme extreme level of power he has, except for the Flash, because now it's a do or die moment, right? Now's his chance. If he doesn't take it, it's the end of all things. So he literally channels the full totality of the Speed Force and touches the inverter. And when that happens, it literally sends a cascading wave across the entirety of the universe, and everything snaps back. All the superheroes from DC end up back in their universe, and all of Team Sonic ends up back in their reality, and Darkseid is momentarily defeated. But the question is, what happened, right? Was it really just touching a metal object that saved the day? No. And in fact, Cyborg and Tails give us a really cool explanation here, right? Because what we're told here is that Cyborg and Tails did the math, that by combining the power of the Chaos Emeralds with Darkseid's own dimensional engine, that they could not only restore everybody to their proper place, but they could actually revert things chronologically before the invasion. So in effect, they sent everyone home and reset time, which is a ridiculous display of power from the Chaos Emeralds, from where I'm sitting anyway. I don't know, maybe all you Sonic fans kind of expected that because you guys know about all that kind of stuff. But it is kind of hilarious here because what you do is you pick up with Sonic and Maria and Tails, right? With everything having been reset back, it's like the invasion never happened at all. And now everybody's just kind of like sad, right? Because Maria's just kind of like, I mean, so here's the thing, man, like, all the stuff that we did, all the time we spent on that other Earth defeating all those bad guys, I guess it just doesn't matter. Like, it just seems like it doesn't really matter all that much. And Tails like, I mean, time travel's messy, man. Sonic is chill as always, right? Smashing down on those chili dogs. Maria's looking at him, wishing Sonic would smash on her, but of course he's not going to, right? And so at that point, Sonic's just kind of like, you know, one thing that I would love, that I would absolutely love one day, is to really race the Flash, for real and for true, right? Not because the stakes are high, not because there's any kind of crazy situation going on, but just a race to legitimately see which one of us is truly the fastest, which we all know to be the Flash. But what you get here is a kind of epilogue scene, right? An epilogue moment when you have Dr. Eggman and Lex Luthor, because one of the things that had happened here is Dr. Eggman found an out. And what he did is he jumped to the DC universe. And when he made that jump, it allows him to start working directly with Lex. So now the next story that we hopefully get, the next crossover we hopefully get, is Eggman and Lex working together. And if any two guys could bring down the superheroes from Team Sonic and the DC universe, it would be these guys. Darkseid's capable, Darkseid's really powerful, but Darkseid is not a thinker in the same way that Lex and Eggman are, because these guys account for every detail, at least the way the Darkseid's depicted here. But with that being said, guys, we're gonna bring this to an end. All jokes aside, I would love to see a race between Sonic and Flash. I don't know which one of these guys is actually faster. I just like pushing the buttons as Sonic fans. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, drop a like. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace.